Hi, welcome. This is the CaddyInfo.com live Cadillac chat. We do these on Thursday nights with all the Cadillac fans who choose to show up and other people who drop in as we go, and yet other people who send me notes during the program and let me know why they could not show up. But also, passerby, if you go to the event page on Google Plus, we do these on Google Plus Hangouts because we know how to do that. But if you go to the event page on Google Plus, you can actually post a question and answer, and so that's one of the ways that you can participate. I have the Q&A panel up here. If you want to participate live, then circle me on Google Plus, and I will try and detect that and send you an invitation. If you know my cell number, or you can text me, and I will try and send you an invitation that way. Tonight I have with me from the Caddy Info Forums, Texas Jim,
Good evening, everyone.
and our friend Vinny from CadillacCountryClub.com has joined us again.
How you doing, everybody? Nice to be here.
Excellent. We will not see our friend Cadillac Jim tonight. He's working, even though I think that violates the terms of his retirement. But we wish him well, and we'll see him another day. We may see our friend Tim Carroll drop in. He was threatening to drop in, but he's as always, got a shop full of work, and so we may not see him drop in. But if he does drop in, then we'll talk to him about some of his Cadillac repair work. One of the big things in the news this week was GM announced that the SRX production is moving from Mexico to the Saturn factory, the previous Saturn factory. What do we think about that? It's moving to Spring Hill in Tennessee? What do you guys think about that? Does that make a big difference in terms of your regard for the SRX?
I like it better than when it's built somewhere else. I think.
Would that make you a buyer for the SRX? If you were on the border?
Yeah. It would help, yes.
I know the SRX is not a DTS, which is your requirement apparently, but
if I was in the market, that would help, yes. It sure would.
Vinny, what do you think?
I'd have to agree with him also.
Yeah, I like having the Spring Hill factory back in use, in heavier use. I like them moving production into that. I like to hear production moving to Tennessee, and so all that seems good to me.
Was there anything being built now?
Pardon?
Was the shop open down there now, building anything for any GM products?
I don't know that right off the top of my head, whether what they had running it. My impression was they have an engine factory there, and they're doing some more things to the engine factory to make some more Ecotec engines there. But I don't know what product lines were coming out of, and they don't mention that in the specific article that I was looking at.
Maybe that's the reason for the move. They want to put the engine shop and the cars right with each other.
Yeah, that certainly makes it simple if you're making the engines right there and can slide them over to the cars. They are moving some other things down to the Mexico plant that the SRX is coming out of. But, I like this for several reasons. It means more U.S. jobs. It means more jobs in Tennessee. It means keeping that Spring Hill facility open even after it helping it survive Saturn not continuing. And so, they were building the Chevrolet Traverse in 08 and 09. So this may actually be a move where they need more Traverses and they have more production down in Mexico, and so it's kind of the SRX production fits over here,
right,
where and the Traverse production fits over there. It optimizes each of the factories, and so it may be a net move out of out of Tennessee for Chevrolet, but I like having Cadillacs made at Spring Hill. That seems like a good match to me.
I was seeing something today on Car and Driver that there is going to be 2 new Cadillac models, a smaller SRX and a bigger SRX. Maybe they're going to keep everything all together in Spring Hill.
So the smaller SRX we've heard some rumors about before that notionally we call that a BRX. And that's a hugely popular segment right now. And so I think Cadillac has been negligent in moving into that segment. Now that said, the 3 Series segment is probably the single most popular sedan segment, and the ATS can't get any traction in that segment. And so even if they came out with the perfect BRX, do you think they could sell any of them?
I think they can. I could see a market for that.
But same thing, BMW is selling 9,000 3 Series a month. Cadillac's making exactly a clone of the 3 Series in the ATS.
It all depends on
and
pricing,
they can't
too.
sell 3,000 of them.
It all depends
Well, it's
on
priced
pricing.
the same.
You know?
But it doesn't have a BMW on it.
Yeah.
So, but the SRX is Cadillac's price leader. So, and it was the easiest possible Cadillac you could make, because they took an SUV that was already popular and made a Cadillac version, a variant of it. So, it seems like a no-brainer to come out with a smaller version, a larger version, and 3 more versions, right?
Whatever
In other
works,
words, they
duplicate it.
kind of went the other way, because they had 2 different engines for the SRX, and they said, yeah, we're just going to go with the 3.6 liter. So they kind of simplified the line, but the SRX is still the sales leader for Cadillac. It sold 44,000 or 4,500 last month. As many as the ATS and the XDS put together. So we could use more SRXs. Now, where I get confused is when you talk about the SRX is a pretty large vehicle. It's not a small vehicle. And so when you talk about a bigger SRX, how much room is there between a huge SUV and an Escalade?
Not a lot.
No. Unless they're changing the design a lot.
Now, but what a huge SUV can do, I have to remind myself, is it can get 25 miles per gallon, right? The full-size SUVs get better gas mileage than the Escalade would.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
A little.
But they won't have that. They won't have that charge that the 400 horsepower Escalade has. The funny thing about the Escalade is it weighs so much, but it moves out. It moves right out as well, and of course has every luxury feature.
I tell you, every time I go to the auto shows and the Escalade is there, and there's a big issue with people getting in and out of it because it's so big. So maybe Cadillac decided, hey, maybe if we make it just a little bit smaller. So maybe that fell into their SRX theory. I don't know.
You mean climbing up into it?
Climbing in and up, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
See, that's the problem my wife has with the SRX now.
Exactly.
She's only 5 foot tall. And even before she had her stroke, we had one as a loaner for about 3 days. And we took a trip in it. And she had trouble getting in and out of it.
Now, see, if you get an SRX, you could pull it up, have her get in the SRX, and then stand up in the SRX to get into the
Escalade.
See, that'll be you back the Escalade right up to it, and that'll be your way in there.
Even the Escalade, the new Escalade that comes out with the folding sides. I forget what the runners for the people to step on. Even that is a big step for a lot of the people here in New York.
Wow.
There's a lot of big people here in New York eating a lot of steaks and.
Yeah, and I guess I have mixed feelings there too. I know you guys get weather, but at the same time, would the Escalade ever be the right car for New York? The right vehicle for New York?
The Escalade up here is basically a taxi for luxury.
Yeah. Well, it's got to be a luxury SUV for everybody everywhere because of the price.
Right.
You can't get one for.
I don't see too many regular Escalades floating around, that aren't.
No. Now there was more news in the news this week about Cadillac sales are slumping, and that became kind of a news trend where more people picked up on the same thing that we've been saying, all year, which is Cadillac sales aren't where they need to be, and we need to do something different in marketing. We need to do something different in the models. We need to radically change the ATS if they're going to get 3 times the sales out of it, which is where they target it to begin with. And so all that said, do you think that Cadillac's actually going to make some significant changes that would allow it to do that, allow sales to change?
Well, of course it's going to take time.
Before
we got no time. Don't tell me it's going to take time. I got no time.
We don't have any time. It needs to be done day before yesterday.
Yesterday, right.
So
it should have already been done.
Yeah, I think they should have the sense that the fire alarm's already gone off, right? I
Yes,
mean,
sir.
here you are in September and your sales are doing nothing. That
Well,
they should already be aware that there's a problem.
my son bought a new car a couple of weeks ago, but he had driven several, and he went and drove the ATS, and he didn't particularly care for it. I don't know why. I
Oh,
haven't
I
driven an
love ours.
ATS.
We got my wife an ATS, and I think
Right.
it's a go kart.
And
I've had the best time with it.
so,
Maybe that's why I want a convertible.
Yeah, I think an ATS convertible would do well, but at the current sales, it's that would be a hard sell, I think, to justify a convertible at the moment. And I would expect when the $100,000 Cadillac comes out that we're going to see a convertible variant of it. Now, one of the things Cadillac said is in order to move up market, they're going to start offering more features. So what features would you like to see Cadillac add as standard features? Now, the new
good
premium
question.
sedan, they talked about they're going to have reclining rear seats to try and catch up with the chauffeur market because some of the BMWs have, bucket seats in the back that recline.
Right.
And, to try and play up to the driver, the market where you have a driver for the car instead of you driving it. But I'm thinking, and one of the things that we've kind of been arguing, right, is that they need to take, right now Cadillac has the standard model, the luxury model, and the premium model. And so if you take an ATS starts just over $30,000, but by the time you get a premium model, it can be $52,000.
Yeah.
And so
the
one of the
CTS
things
money,
we've
yeah.
been saying is they need to move that down a whole ratchet, a whole peg, right? So that in other words, the baseline model is the luxury model, and the premium model, and sells for 35, and the premium model is 40 instead of
That's the way it needs to
52.
be.
That's the way it needs to be. I agree.
So and if they can't do that, then they need to get back to the drawing board on the ATS. But what features would you like to see? And it's that problem that the cars they're competing with from Acura, Honda, and Hyundai have all these features in the standard car. You don't have to go. You might get a better leather or a better, custom features for the more money, but right out of the box, they come with all the features that used to be, luxury car only features.
The Hyundai Equus, I believe I think that's how you pronounce it. It has a reclining back seats.
And they've locked the price of it at like 45, right?
Yeah, 45 to 55. Yeah.
I think they
I
basically said.
I think the Equus is about 55.
Jim, would that persuade you to buy a car reclining rear seats? I don't see you.
He doesn't ever ride in the rear.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, 61. The Equus MSRP 61.
Okay.
90% of the
So
people, I don't
wrong.
think they would ever use it.
But the Equus comes with everything. There's no, as far as I read an article a while back, and the way I read the article, there is no options except for color and interior and stuff like that.
Now, but BMW is the best seller in the market right now, and Mercedes, and they offer multiple options on their cars. So and I like the idea of options. I don't want to sound like I'm against options. My argument is the standard model ought to come with more key features, and then the things that are options ought to be, if you want ostrich skin leather, or if you want, ought to be above and beyond.
Right.
Not in order to get lane change and in order to get what I consider mandatory buys, you have to get the premium model. But I don't think there's as many people that they don't want they want to pay $35,000 for a Cadillac, but they don't want luxury features. I think that's a small market.
That's a
What people want is
very
I want
Very
everything. I
small.
want it fully loaded.
that's a very, very small market that would be willing to buy a base Cadillac without, extra options.
Yeah,
That
right now
that's
I think there's.
that's such a small niche. I don't think it should even be considered.
I think Cadillac needs to do some serious analysis of the bands that they have for each of the pricing. And so to me, the ATS ought to never cost more than $45,000. The XTS ought to be right there in between, and then the CTS, should start at the low end at 45 and build up to 65.
Yeah, that
But you
sounds
don't
good.
need to, each car
Are
doesn't
you
have to
sure?
have a
Are you sure you said that
$25,000
right?
range.
Are you
Pardon?
sure you said that right?
The ATS at the low end in a $15,000 range, the XTS in between, the CTS at the high end, right? CTS is our expensive car at the moment.
Okay.
Is that what you think?
I
You'd
don't
rather
even.
say the XTS at the most expensive?
Well, it
XTS
is.
appeals to a whole different customer than the ATS and the CTS, right?
Yes, up to a point.
So where would you put them?
Well, I thought the XTS was supposed to be upscale from the CTS.
I think the CTS has moved upscale of everybody now.
Okay.
But the CTS and the
I can.
XTS actually have very similar options. I mean, both of them have all the gadgets. The main difference is the XTS is front wheel drive and the CTS has a smaller back seat and is rear wheel drive, right? Or all wheel drive. They both offer all wheel drive.
I
So
actually, I actually fit well in the new CTS.
yeah, because you only use the front seat, right?
I don't care about the back
I
seat.
like the new CTS, but the back seat's a little more cramped than the old one.
Obviously, that's not the back seat don't even come into my consideration.
Not a sales issue, yeah.
As long as I can open the door and set a bag of groceries in the back seat when I go to Kroger's, that's all I need a back seat for.
So Cadillac should make a Cadillac El Camino.
Now, yeah, that would be fine with me.
Well, they could sell that to Jim, yeah.
Yeah,
One market.
the '80s sedan DeVille I came just about that close to having it converted. I was already talking to a body shop guy. We figured out what bed it would take to fit, and was getting the price of all the body work, and I was going to have it converted and make a pickup out of it. And I didn't need a back seat, didn't use it, and I liked the idea. I liked the idea of the Cadillac pickup, and at that time I had the money to do it without hurting the bank account. But then a few things came up, and it never did get done. I
Now
still wish I had done it.
that said, it would depend. Even if they came out with the XTS El Camino, it would depend on where the center console was and how it hit against Jim's knee as to whether he would
Exactly.
get it
It
or
sure
not.
would. It sure would.
Cadillac Camino Super Sport.
Because if I'm
Yeah,
paying
with
that
no
kind of
center
money,
console, please.
if I'm paying that kind of money, I'm going to be comfortable. I ain't going to write the check.
No, that's right, and that's as it should be, right?
Yes,
Now,
sir.
what do you think? What do you think of the chances of us seeing this missing V8 that's rumored to come in the large car? And where do you think that has to hit? So if it is this 4.5 liter twin turbo V8 variant of the 3.6 liter, how many
It, ne-
horsepower do we need out of that?
it needs to be at least 500.
Because at 500 you have a good selling point, right?
Yep.
Is that what you're thinking?
Yes, sir.
Because even pedestrian cars have 425 horsepower these days, right?
Yes, sir. And the larger BMWs and the larger Mercedes, look at their horsepower.
And
And if it's coming out to try to compete with them, then it needs to actually compete.
it's likely to be more than 4,000 pounds, right?
Yes, sir.
Even on the new light chassis, the large extended version of the chassis, it's likely to come in at 4,300 pounds, just like my car,
At least.
which means that you need a few horsepower
Yep. To
if
get
you're going to
respectable
be
performance out
a
of it.
premium car. If you want to sell it for $125,000, I think it's got to have more than 500 horsepower. It sounds like they're threatening to bring the 420 horsepower twin turbo V6 as the standard engine, and then this turbo V8 as the premium engine. Is what I'm that's my prediction, is that we'll see those two engines. Maybe not the first year. We may see the V8 the second year because it takes them so long to get things to market.
Is it possible to put the V8 in the larger SRX? Could that be a premium selling point?
I think the larger SRX is still going to be on that front wheel drive platform, and so the engine's going to be in there sideways. Now, after they did that magic with putting the twin turbo V6 into the XTS, then anything's possible, right?
Right.
That given that they did that packaging, anything's possible.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Instead of the V8, which they would have to spend, and they always spend 17 times too much time on doing something.
Yes.
But instead of trying to put the V8 in it, most of the engineering to do the sideways twin turbo V6 has already been done, and all it would take would be, move this brace from here over here, and that kind of stuff. It would be minor engineering to relatively minor.
Yeah, at the 50,000 foot level, it's minor. At the actually do it level, it's $25 million. Because you have to have, all the new drawings, and you have to go back through EPA tests, and you have to. So I agree that in principle, the V8 version of the V6 should just be slightly dimensionally larger, but it goes in the same place, uses similar transmissions. Now we're finally going to get the 8-speed automatic, the GM 8-speed automatic, in the new Cadillac, and we think that the CTS will go to that, and the ATS will go to that. And I tell you, I think that's the big thing missing from the ATS is the 8-speed automatic, and the next ATS should have the GM 8-speed automatic. And that's what the rumor mill's saying, is that we'll see the 8-speed automatic in the ATS.
In the premium version.
Oh yeah. It'll have to be that. Well, that's the only one I can buy. That's the only one I would recommend is the premium.
Right.
The premium ATS. But my preference is you wait a year, and then you get it a year old in the premium version instead of the standard version. At the same price or less.
Or less.
Yeah.
I've been watching prices of ATSs used a lot.
Yeah, that's exactly what we did with my wife's car. Is she wanted the crystal red tint coat and premium with the driver awareness or driver alert, whichever one it doesn't come with, the extra package. And so we ended up getting, so it's got the radar cruise control, the lane change warning, the blind spot detection, the whole thing, and paid about what we would have paid for the standard model, but a year old. So that's definitely what I recommend.
That lane change warning thing will run you nuts.
Well, in mine, it makes the beeping sound. In the new ones, it vibrates your seat.
So
it might drive you nuts, but at least it won't drive your wife nuts.
Mine beeps.
Yeah. Mine beeps. Yeah, you may want to turn that off. I like it, but my wife complains about it all the time. What was that beep?
It took me about 20 miles this side of Abilene to figure out where the button was to turn it off.
I had to rent a car the other day, and it kept beeping at me, and I finally decided what had happened was the iPad, I was using the iPad for navigation. I had the iPad sitting loose in the passenger seat, and the iPad had impinged the seat enough that the car decided that we needed to have the airbag on, in case the iPad, we had an accident to protect the iPad, and that the iPad did not have its seatbelt on.
Right.
And
So the
so it was
seatbelt
beeping
thing
at me to
dinging at
buckle the seatbelt. And probably what happened is I put my briefcase there and then moved my briefcase to the floor, and so the car decided that was heavy enough that a person was sitting there. As I tell the story, I bet that's what happened.
That's probably it.
But yeah, it took me a while because it gave me no messages on the dash. No, the only thing I could finally figure out was it was flashing the passenger airbag is now on light. So
I guess
I
they
think
figure
that's what the
anything more than 10 pounds, it would be in the trunk.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yep. Keep it in the trunk, please. But I am totally sympathetic about having ding ding dings and not knowing what the heck it's for. The one that catches me on occasion, although this, I should say this never happens to me, but the other one that gets my attention is if you leave the left turn signal on for an extended period of time, then the car will eventually beep at you to tell you your blinker's still on.
1 minute or 1 mile.
Ah, so you have it down to a science.
Well, the first DTS I had, we were coming through North Carolina, was on a nice, smooth, freshly asphalt paved interstate. Wife was asleep. I had the radio down real low, and I was getting off at an exit, and there was some cars behind me, so I put my right turn signal on and eased off of the exit. Well, got over in the right lane and then got up to the exit and got off. And I'm slightly hard hearing, and the little click, 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 it's not exactly a click, but kind of the turn signal, I can't hardly hear it. It's just the right frequency that I can't hear it real well.
Yes.
So anyway, I'm kind of, just kind of laid back and cruising. When I ease off the exit ramp and down on the service road, it's still nice and smooth. And I'm all relaxed, laid back there. I've got the backseat massager going and all this stuff. Wife's asleep. Everything's nice and calm. And all of a sudden, that thing goes ding, 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 ding. And I like to come unglued. It was just really startling. I wasn't expecting it. And
Yes.
everything was so quiet. And then all of a sudden, it dinged real loud. And I'm looking around, what happened? What happened? What's wrong? Did something break, or do I need to stop? And finally figured out it's by that time the little information center was flashing, that my right turn signal was on. So I turned it off and it quit dinging. But I tell you, that'll get your heart rate up real quick when you're not expecting it.
Exactly.
And of course, you shouldn't be driving along as relaxed as I was either, but for a change, I hadn't been running real fast, so I was all relaxed. Probably too much so, but it really startled me. That was the first one I ever had that would do that. But now this new one, it will flash in the driver information center a few seconds before it dings, and it'll tell you the turn signal's on. It'll give you time to turn it off. Now, if you're turning the wheel, it won't ding at you. If you're making turns, it won't ding at you no matter how long you leave it on, as long as you keep making turns. But it's only when you're going straight and it's on is when it'll ding at you.
Now, one of the things that Ellinghaus is saying is instead of locking options into packages, the luxury package, the performance package, and the premium package, they're going to start offering more options a la carte.
Good.
Do you see that as important? I mean, would you sit down and say, well, I want the heated and cooled seats, but I don't really want the radar navigation, the radar cruise control?
Cruise control. Yeah, I would do that.
Vinny, what do you think?
I don't have any desire for a radar cruise.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Jim. I could see him customizing his Cadillac and waiting a couple weeks for it.
So I used to love going to order a new car. You'd sit down there with the
And
salesman. He'd bring a book out,
and it was like
and
Sudoku, right?
you can get this kind of interior, and you can get this color, and if it normally comes two-tone and you don't want it two-tone, that's fine. If it normally came with a single color and you wanted it two-tone, that's okay too.
Now you end up with a lot of odd combinations that aren't possible, right? Like one of our readers ran into a problem that if he got all-wheel drive, he couldn't get the sportiest suspension setting.
Right.
Even though we got the premium with the all-wheel drive, it came with the mid-range suspension, not the performance suspension. And so I think that's kind of the issue with picking individual things is you may find those odd conflicts.
Well, now there would be some. For instance, back when I used to order all my cars, I ordered a new '76 Chevy Caprice. I wanted a two-door. I wanted the big engine, the big block, and I wanted the F41 suspension. You know, and to get those, I had to take the larger rear end, the larger ring gear and pinion.
Right.
That was part of getting the bigger engine. It had so much power, the smaller rear end wouldn't handle it. So it was the rear end was automatically upgraded, which was fine with me. Because that also included PowerTrack, which was also fine with me. And but back then you could sit down though and you could actually spec it out. I want the heavy duty cooling system. No, I don't want the trailering package. And I want the transmission cooler. I want the oil cooler. I want a heavy duty radiator. I want a bigger battery. I want a bigger alternator. I want this kind of interior. I want this color. I want this suspension on it. And when you got done, you had the car that you wanted.
And you can do that on the interwebs these days anyway, right? I mean, it's easy to go build your own.
No, you can't.
How come?
Because it all comes in a package.
Oh, no. But if it didn't come in a package, in other words, right now on the internet, you do the build gadget, and even though it locks you into packages, so if it didn't lock you into packages, if they had the individual options individually, then you could pick, I want this, and just email it to the dealer, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And it prices it for you right there on the web, and
right.
Then you can tell them what your offer is.
Right.
Here's the total, and I'll offer you $2.
Maybe an idea for this is use the ATS as a base instead of the base being 33. Make it 25 and let the people pick the more options. You get a lot younger people into Cadillacs at 25 than 33.
Well, when the CTS started out, and the CTS was the entry-level Cadillac, their claim to fame was, for $29,900 you could get a CTS, and it had the worst engine. It had the 3-liter engine, and it had but you could get a Cadillac out the door for, inexpensive. And so I agree. I'd like to see them go back. But I don't know what you decontent from the ATS though, that would let you sell it cheaper other than just not having as much margin on it. I still think it needs to come with electric windows and defrosters and leather and everything it comes with now.
Power seats and windows should be standard on any Cadillac.
But that they're not on the very entry level, right? That it'll have a power driver's seat and not a passenger seat. My 2004 CTS was that way. It had an electric driver's seat and a manual passenger seat for the standard.
Which one?
The CTS in 2004.
No. Then I wouldn't really consider that a Cadillac. If it don't have power seats and power windows and reclining seats, power steering, tilt wheel, AM/FM radio.
Yeah, but we want it to be less money, so how do you make it less money?
You make all that standard.
Now, what if I said,
Now, how
"Hey,
much
Jim,
would it cost? How much would it cost to put the power passenger seat in? $12.38. I
yeah,
mean,
part of
seriously,
that's false cost is the point you're making, is the premium model doesn't really cost Cadillac, you know, if the
it don't
premium
cost.
model costs $25,000 more than the standard model, it doesn't cost Cadillac a third of that, right?
No, it don't.
The difference, the engines may actually be cheaper, and there was a while there that I would argue that that the premium engine actually cost them less than the standard engine did because they were making them in larger numbers.
Exactly. Anytime you're doing it in quantity, your cost per unit goes down.
Now, what if I said the other way, though? What if I said, I can give you a standard ATS that's got all the electronic features, but it weighs 400 pounds more? Or I can give you the premium ATS, that gets 2 miles per gallon better and weighs 400 pounds less.
And they're equipped the same.
Equipped the same, yeah.
If they're equipped the same, I'll take the one that weighs a little more.
Yeah, but even if it gets a little worse miles per gallon, because that's part of the expense of the ATS, right? Is that it's got this cool aluminum suspension, and one of the things they're going to do to pull cost out of that platform to make the Camaro is they're going to go to more steel in the suspension and less aluminum, but it's going to weigh a bit more. And so they know
And
how to make it less expensive. But would you decontent the standard ATS that way?
for the
In a way that
average
doesn't really
person,
show up to most people.
they'd never know the difference.
They would never know.
They're looking at that bottom line on that window sticker. How much does it cost?
So see, if you did that, if you said we're going to have a 242 horsepower tune on the 2-liter turbo, and we're going to have the Camaro parts instead of the ATS parts, and be able to hold the price down under 30,000 for the standard, I think that would make a very attractive buy for a lot of people.
It would.
I think the number of 33,000 is a scaring point as opposed to 29. That 4,000
Yeah.
difference, especially to the younger generation. They see 33, it might as well say 133.
Well,
But if it's 29.9,
but the average
29.9,
car,
sell
the
a lot.
average car last year sold for more than $30,000. So 30,000 is not as high a number as it used to be, right?
Yeah, that's the average car though. But if people are looking to get into a Cadillac, younger people, if they had a model that still had decent equipment on it, I don't mean a fully loaded premium model, but a model with decent equipment and priced it at $29.9, that would get them into the showroom.
And that's what Mercedes is doing with their CLA.
Exactly.
Now, what Mercedes has done, of course, is they have a front-wheel drive car that's down market. It's pretty, but it's not as sophisticated an approach as a rear-wheel drive ATS, not as good a handling car as the ATS is, but it lets them sell it for $29.9. Now, their out-the-door price for that is actually in the mid-30s. They get you in the showroom, and then they show you the other features you need in your
Right.
CLA. But
Well,
the big, their billboard is the picture of the CLA and the 29.9. That's the
right.
whole. That's the no other words need to appear on the billboard.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about with the ATS. They need to be doing the same thing. If they're going to compete with Mercedes, and if that advertising is working for Mercedes, then it'll work for Cadillac.
Now the CLA is actually technically the Cadillac guys talk about it's actually smaller than an ATS. To me, I don't understand how it could be much smaller than an ATS, but that's how they described it. They're hoping to come out with a sub ATS, something even smaller than an ATS that's still rear-wheel drive to compete. And this could be, I always wanted the Saturn Sky or the Pontiac Solstice. I wanted Cadillac to come out with a model on that platform, but they never did. You know, I would have bought a Cadillac Saturn Sky with a Cadillac logo on it and been happy, because I thought that those were really nice cars for the, even though they were a little heavy for what they were. That I thought those were really nice cars. And the Opel got one, but Cadillac didn't get one. And I'd have to see them side by side to understand the dimensions of the CLA versus an ATS. It surprises me that it's much smaller.
But the Cadillac advertising, okay, my boy just bought a new car. But
Yes.
he went and looked at the Mercedes. He didn't buy one, but he went and looked at one. And the one he decided he liked was not the little one. He went to the Mercedes dealer because of those ads. But
Yes.
once he got there and got to looking at them, and he drove different ones, the one he liked was the 550 convertible. The not the S, the model just below the S. Is that the C?
Or the E? The E is just below the S, right?
Okay, it was the E550, and he really liked it, but it was a little bit out of his price range. But my point was, he went to the Mercedes dealer because of the 299F, and he actually
Yes.
did look at that car. But he's a pretty good sized boy, and it was just too small for him. And he said it was lacking in performance.
But if he went there to spend X, didn't he end up spending a lot more for the up model?
Oh yeah, he was willing to spend more, but it was the ad that got his attention and pointed him towards Mercedes. Mercedes wasn't even on his radar till he saw 2 or 3 of those billboards out there by where he works.
Hmm.
And he says he went ahead and bought more or less an economy car and got rid of the car he had. He'd got where he didn't like it. And he bought a little mid-sized economy car to get good mileage, 4-cylinder with a CVT transmission. I drove it the other day. They've made a lot of improvements in the CVT since the last time I drove one. Last time I drove a CVT, I thought it was junk.
Yeah, so the CLA, by the time you ring it up, it starts at $29,900, and out the door it would be $30,000. Now an ATS, the 2.5 liter luxury sedan, so the standard model. No, that's the luxury model. So let's put if we're going to get the standard model. The standard model starts at, it hasn't updated yet. Maybe I didn't. Yeah, standard, update. The standard starts at 33, and so it's 34 by the time you get it out the door. But the ATS is 3-inch longer wheelbase than the CLA, and of course it's rear-wheel drive instead of front-wheel drive. Now the CLA, yeah, usually they'll do a side by. I don't see that in their analysis today. Usually they'll do a show me a comparable. You know, how much would you have to add to the CLA in order to get the features of the ATS, that kind of thing. But I don't see that, and I don't see a bunch of the CLA doesn't have a remote keyless starts. The only thing I see missing, and it's, you know, it has that same a 2-liter engine with. The ATS has a 2.5 liter, but it has a 208 horsepower versus the ATS is 203 for the you know, the original engine, the baseline engine. So it is a little bit smaller, I get that, but I think for most families they would be similar sized cars, right?
Right.
Yeah.
They don't list the overall length, but now the BMW, the 3 Series sedan, it's at 37, and I think that's what Cadillac's looking at is by the time you start with a 3 Series sedan, then you're already you're already in you're already in the 30s, and so um, even at the 328, you're in the 30s. And BMW didn't have much luck at the going down. At their previous 1 Series, they actually stopped selling it because it just didn't sell that well. And I mean, they've done well with the Mini Cooper, but that's not a BMW, right? And
Right.
so that's kind of like saying, well, Cadillac's done great with Buick, but that's a different mark. That GM as a whole, selling across the spectrum, has done well. But now let's talk about that. Does Cadillac need to sell in the $30,000 range? Should Cadillac have no cars in the $30,000 range and give that up to Buick?
They need an entry model for younger people, from what I see in New York anyway.
But originally, the GM Spectrum, the idea was the young people buy a Chevrolet, and then when they get a better job, they buy a Pontiac, and then they buy a Buick, and then they get a Cadillac eventually. Keep them in the GM stable. I agree with you, Vinny. I'm just saying, I think that was the original plan, right?
Well, that was the original plan, but that's 40 years out of date. They need to get with the current market. People are no longer brand loyal like they used to be.
Well, the people at the other brands are. The BMW drivers keep buying BMWs, and the Mercedes drivers keep buying Mercedes.
But
I think it misses the fact that, and they tried this for a while, right, in the early 2000s, is they tried to emphasize GM as a brand, and I think that was completely a waste of time. In other words, nobody wants to say, well, I've got a General Motors car and it happens to be a Buick, or it happens to be a Pontiac, or it happens to be an Oldsmobile, or it happens to be a Cadillac. That you have to emphasize the individual brands. That people
right.
drive a Corvette, or they drive a Cadillac, or they drive a Buick, and they're loyal to that brand. And so it doesn't help Cadillac sales. People that love Buicks are going to buy a Buick. They're not buying a Cadillac.
I agree.
Or they're not looking to see what else does GM make. Now, I'll go pick a GM rent-a-car just because it's a GM car. But not everybody, I don't think other people think that way.
No. I go to a lot of the car shows, and there's a big divide between the younger guys and the older guys. And it's like the younger guys, they're all doing Mazdas and Nissans, and they're fixing them up and all that. If you went up to them and told them, oh, you can get a Cadillac for that, they'd be like, what's a Cadillac? They're not even thinking they're thinking a Cadillac is $50,000 and they can't afford one.
Right.
So there's a big divide there. If you can get those guys into a Cadillac, their next car will be a bigger Cadillac, is what I'm thinking. I think they're missing a whole market segment, at least up here in the Northeast.
And so what should Cadillac be selling at less than $30,000?
That's the question.
I mean, should the ATS be there, or should the ATS be 35 to 45, and they need a new car? I would work with what I've got. To answer my own question, I would take the ATS, figure out a way to keep the features, and move it in the 28 to 38 range, or 28 to 40 range, and that would be it. What would you guys do?
Here you go. You ready for this one?
Yeah.
We take the ATS base model. We drop the V8 engine in there, make it a convertible, and sell it for $30,000.
And you could sell as many as you wanted, right? Is that just so you can get one before they come to their senses?
Probably. They'd probably lose about $20,000 each car. But think of how many young people would be driving them.
Their margins, I think, are very good on the Cadillacs, and so it wouldn't. I think they'd have to go out of their way before they lost money on any of them. But how much money are you willing to say? Given the choices here, putting a new model on the street below the ATS has to be a $100 million decision, right? $100 million bet. And so you can lose a lot of money on ATSs before it costs you $100 million.
Yeah, I think the ATS is the model to use. I don't think there's another
one. If they would price the base ATS with halfway decent equipment on it at $29,900, that would get people in the showroom, and 9 out of 10 of them, maybe more, maybe 9.5 out of 10, would not buy that base model.
Would buy a $35,000 one, yeah.
They're going to go ahead and spend 33, 35, 38.
You're going to get them in the showroom.
Now, is that surrender for Cadillac?
In the showroom.
I think with the magazines and the websites, I'll say that was surrender for Cadillac. They couldn't sell an ATS at what it's worth, and so now they had to lower the price on it, and it's bad old GM.
Should you really care what the magazine says if you're selling cars?
People read them.
Huh?
People read them. People
Car
say.
People read them. Car people read them. Regular people don't read them.
I agree.
So how do you package money on a car without packaging money on a car, I guess is the question. But I think if you actually literally lower the price, that's different than putting money on the hood, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you're not offering an incentive. You're coming to your senses and pricing it correctly. And the ELR, don't even get me started on the ELR, right? The ELR was priced way out of where it should have been, way out in Christmas from where it should have been to begin with.
Well,
it was in a ridiculous area.
Let's take the engine out of the ELR and put the ATS engine in there and sell that as the lower model.
There you go. And they actually could do that. They have that off the shelf now, right? So now that they've done all the work on the ELR, you could actually take the battery out of it, take the you could leave the engine that's in there if you chose to, the 1.4 liter, but you could pull that out, put the 2.5 liter from the ATS, and have a front-wheel drive small car to offer people. But I think without the, first of all, it would highlight the fact that that hybrid engine is costing $30,000. But without that draw, it would just be a car that was too small for young families to buy. Young families got to have room for a soccer team. And so I absolutely think that they're doing the right thing. I would lower the price of the SRX $5,000, bring in the BRX, and I would price the BRX at $25,000. But they're making more than that on a Traverse now, right? You can't get a Chevy Traverse for I think it's more than that. So let me go check my thinking about where the Traverse starts. But the Chevy Traverse is like, it starts at 31.
So let's combine both of your thinking. Let's use Jim's $29,900 to get the family into the showroom where they buy an SRX. You know, the SRX is clearly the star of the show, family-wise.
Well, the SRX is selling well, but are they selling as many as they could of them? So the SRX won that contest when they were selling the CTS station wagon next to the SRX because it cost $5,000 less than the station wagon did, and because people like my wife hate station wagons. But right now the SRX is selling well, but it runs from 37 to 58. 37,000 to 58,000, and the premium version of the SRX has nothing. It's not. It doesn't have $21,000 more features than the standard SRX, right? You've got the same engine. You've got the same. They're adding nav and they're adding better seats and they're adding, but not $21,000. I mean, that's ludicrous to have $21,000 in option delta from your standard to your premium model.
Right.
I think that's fundamentally flawed thinking. That I would like to see the SRX start at 35 and run to 45. But the same thing, I think Cadillac's bands are twice as large as they should be. I'd like to see the ATS start at 28 and run to 38, the CTS start at 45 and run to 55, in that range. And so if that means that you dump the standard model altogether and just have the luxury and the premium, I'm okay with that. But if you want to bring the standard model because you got to make your price point, then, but I don't know. I guess I agree with Jim that I don't want a model that doesn't have Cadillac features.
No, I wouldn't.
It's not a Cadillac.
If it says Cadillac, it needs to have Cadillac features.
And that was always the lure, right? That I mean, people would come buy my mom's Cadillacs when she was done with them and drive them for another 10 years because they wanted a car that had, every luxury option, right?
Right.
That's what Cadillac means is it's a fully loaded car.
That's why I've, down through the years, why I've always bought the top line Cadillac. But they didn't used to be priced. There wasn't such a huge difference between the base model and the top line model
Now,
as what there is now.
Now, I guess the only caveat I would say is I'd like to see the standard model come well equipped, and then there'd be a range of, luxury to premium within $10,000. And then if you want special, I only want, leather seats of a Puma in my Cadillac, then you can order that, and it would be above that. In other words, I'd like to see them have truly premium coachworks, truly premium interiors, truly premium. So if you want ostrich quill leather seats, that's available to you from the Cadillac special order department, but you're going to pay for that.
Yeah.
But that's what, if above premium ought to be special order coach, just like Cadillac used to be, where you could literally come in and say, I want this chassis and I want a custom body made by Fisher, and here's a sketch.
Yep.
That's what I'd like to see them get back to, is where they have real custom houses. They have their flexible assembly line, so I'm not clear why they're not actually using it to make that kind of car more available to regular people. And then people would understand that Cadillac means luxury. It'd be the Cadillac of motor cars again.
Yeah.
I have kept us a whole hour on our 30-minute plan.
That's because you got the
Thank you guys for being on and for bearing with the conversation. I apologize again this week that I didn't pre-publish the topics, but I appreciate you being agile and flexible as we ramble through multiple topics. If you're watching and you ever want to be on the Caddy Info chat with us, that what you do is signal me somehow. The best way is circle me on Google Plus, because we run these on Google Plus Hangouts. That you can also let me know on the Caddy Info forum. Tonight I have with me Texas Jim, or Platinum Jim as I like to call him, with his new Platinum DTS from the forum. Texas Jim, any last words?
I'm still liking it.
Perfect. And Vinny from Cadillac Country Club. Vinny, any wisdom to share with our reviewers?
I think we hit a lot of points that I like. The ATS, small, convertible. Needs to happen.
Vinny's headed his way cross country in a Mazda Miata, so we'll have to get a photo log of that trip.
Yeah, I want to see that.
Yeah, I'll be taking photos. You know me, I'm taking photos everywhere.
And take your GoPro with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's got gadgets. I wouldn't have accused Vinny of having gadgets, but it sounds like he is gadgeted up to me. So, yeah, we should get good coverage of your trip then.
Where are you going to?
We're just going from New York City to Cleveland. I got to do a speaking gig out there, and I'm going to drive back.
So, drive back to where?
New York City.
Just and you're where now?
New York, from New York to Cleveland.
New York to Ohio.
Yeah. Just
New York, Ohio.
Yeah, just a short ride across Pennsylvania.
A little short trip.
Yeah.
To Texas Jim, that's the same neighborhood. If you go fast enough, everywhere is close together. And again, caddyinfo.com, CADDYINFO. We do these chats on Thursday nights. If you do want to join in, we have found that we're easy to get along with, and we can actually walk you through how to do Google Plus. If you're not sure about that, then it's not tricky, and you can learn. Thanks, guys, for being on standby. I'm going to hit stop broadcast, and then we'll have an offline chat for a moment before we wrap up.